All right, peace and greetings, YouTubers. So welcome to another edition of In the News. Let's just jump right into it. I mean, clearly, there's a whole lot going on this week. Like, this week is off the chain, and it has not even kicked into second gear yet. Like, it's not even Wednesday yet. By the time you all see this, it'll probably be Wednesday. But as for me in my house right now, it's Tuesday over here, and I'm not editing tonight. I'm going to bed after I film this, so y'all will just see this on Wednesday. But, man, let's just jump right into it. Today is August 9th, and everybody knows that August 9th was the birthday of Whitney Houston, who would have been 59 today, and she's one of my favorites. Look, I got the shirt on. I'm paying the homage. I feel like everybody and their mom has this shirt. Like, I keep seeing a whole lot of people with it, so I thought I was exclusive, but never mind. Everybody got it on, but it's cool. It is what it is. But Whitney, I always felt, of course, was a gem that just was going too soon, and she's your favorite singer's favorite singer. You know, she's literally one of the greatest to ever do it. And so it's so sad she's no longer with us. But when I think of, I guess, the favorite Whitney tracks that I had outside of the singles, because pretty much any, you know, a lot of times the singles you love so much, but outside of the big singles, Feel So Good is probably my favorite Whitney song. It was released in Japan, I think, for the I'm Your Baby Tonight sessions. That's like one of my favorite Whitney songs. The extended version of Just a Lonely Talking from the Whitney album, that's a really great one. One of my good friends got me onto that one. And My Heart Is Calling from the Preacher's Wife soundtrack. Like, those are my go-to three, in addition to the big singles that we play out all the time that you hear on the radio every 5 minutes. And so, yeah, that's definitely a legend. So sad to see her not with us anymore. It's crazy. Like, a lot of my childhood favorite entertainers are no longer here, which is why the ones that are still here, I gas up and celebrate and go hard for. But, you know, to each his own. So, shout out to August 9th, my fellow Leo, Whitney Houston. In addition, Serena Williams has announced that she is planning to retire from tennis. And, you know, honestly, I do think it's a great time to kind of bow out gracefully. I really did want her to get to that 24 Grand Slam titles. And who knows, maybe she might do it beforehand, because I know she still has at least one more open that she's participating in. But 23 is definitely something most people can never even dream of doing. Like, she is so accomplished in her lane, and she really is one of the, in my opinion, greatest athletes, period. Not even just amongst the women, but just period. Like, I put her in the same boat with a lot of the other people that we celebrate as far as the legends in sports. And I mean, just some of the stuff that she did was so dope. Like, the fact that she won the Australian Open in 2017 and was pregnant. Like, she was pregnant and won. And on top of that, then when you think of Maria, what is it, Sharapova, who she beat, and Maria was on steroids. I'm like, wait, so you beat somebody who was on steroids while you were pregnant? Like, that's some dope stuff there. Like, Serena goes down as one of the greatest. And, you know, the fact that, you know, there's so much that goes into, like, being a tennis player, because every player has their own style. She's a very athletic player, and like when they're playing, they have to literally study each player and how their style is, because all of the tennis players have different styles. And so I know some of them used to hate when they had to go against her, because they knew they were about to, like, really be given a run for their money, because Serena is quick. Like, she has that super fast serve, and then she had the agility where she just could do all kind of tricks. And you remember that one time, I wish I could put the footage on, but man, the freaking little sports networks, they like to flag the videos when you show the sports clips, because every time I show anything with Naomi on it, they be flagging me. But man, it was that one time where I think she saved the play and fell into a split and still got the hit. I was like, this woman is Serena don't be playing no games. But, you know, a sport like tennis is a lot of wear and tear on the body. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot on the knees and the joints. And like I said, you got to be very athletic, and you have to have agility to really excel in that. And she's super dope. One of the quotes she had said was, "It's the hardest thing that I could ever imagine. I don't want it to be over, but at the same time, I'm ready for what's next." And I think in life, eventually, you know, you have your different seasons for everything, and this has pretty much been her entire life. And so I can understand, like, maybe I want to just go and do something different. And, you know, she has a child and everything now, and so kudos to her. Good luck to her. I mean, you can't deny what it is that she's been able to do for tennis. Like, even in regards to ratings, her and her sister alone, you know, brought entire new demographics into the game of tennis. You know, you had the legends like Althea Gibson and everybody, but I think when it came to the later generations that would come about, like people like Venus and Serena were able to keep that same interest for the next generations when it came to what was happening in tennis. And so she's definitely, you know, or even Arthur Ashe as well from the earlier generations, but she goes down as a legend. And so I wish her all the best. Like, I love me some Serena. I love some Serena and Venus. And, you know, the movie on Venus was super dope. Y'all go ahead and make Serena a movie too later down the line if y'all can. But, yeah, good for her. Also, rest in peace to Lamont Dozier, who passed away at the age of 81. If you remember, he was a part of that super production team over at Motown Records, Holland Dozier Holland, along with Eddie and Brian Holland. And literally, they crafted so many of the signature songs that would have come out of Motown records, especially a lot of the early tracks. Like them, along with people like Smokey Robinson, really crafted a lot of really classic gems that came out of that era. And when you just look at some of the credits to his name, I mean, literally he has credits on 14 #1 songs on the Billboard Hot 100. And those are just the #1s. That doesn't even include like the top 5 singles and the top 10s, because, you know, a lot of the singles that were released on Motown were always top 10 or top 5 singles. It was like a given. They had the whole Motown machine, and they had a formula, and they tried to ensure that every time they put out a single with their different artists, they were going to be these massive hits. And it's so crazy because a lot of the songs that they have credits for, even if you weren't around, like myself, it's funny because, of course, when your parents would play the loud music on the weekends when it was time to clean up, you'd hear all these songs, you know, you'd be sleeping peacefully, dreaming about whatever you dream about when you're a kid. And then next thing you know, it's like 7:59 in the morning and you hear the music cranking, and it's like the Marvelettes and Smokey Robinson and all of the Motown stuff. And now, you know, you got to vacuum or clean or dust or cut the grass or wash the car or do something, you know, because parents always want to nag while they're cleaning up too. So you better find something to clean. But I was looking at some of the songs with their titles. I'm not going to name them all because there's a bunch, but at least the ones I remember always hearing on those Saturday and Sunday mornings. If it wasn't Patti LaBelle, if it wasn't Motown, my mom was playing Patti. Man. Or my dad was playing Earth, Wind & Fire and Brothers Johnson. But let me see. Martha and Vandella's Heat Wave, which definitely is a classic. Like, I feel like that's a song that everybody recognizes. I feel like that's one of the more signature songs to come out of the Motown sound. The Supremes, Where Did Our Love Go? Like, as soon as you hear that clap, 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 and then the song starts, like, you just know what it is. People say I like snap really loud. The Four Tops, Baby I Need Your Lovin'. That's a good one. Come See About Me, The Supremes Again. Baby Love, The Supremes Again. They did a lot of stuff with the Supremes. Marvin Gaye, How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You. That's a good one. I like that one. The Supremes, Stop in the Name of Love. I feel like when people think of the Supremes, that's the first song they think of. What else? Nowhere to Run, Martha and Vandellas. That's one of my favorites. Nowhere to Run. Yeah, that's a good one. The Four Tops. Oh, same old song. Remember? Okay, do you guys remember back in the day? It had to be like 95, 96, or maybe 97. They literally had recreated the same old song and you know, changed the lyrics and made it fit with the Velveeta Cheese. You know, it's not the same old side, like they said side instead of whatever they said. I was like, okay. Interesting. Also, Four Tops, I Can't Help Myself, Sugar Pie Honey Bunch. I think that's another classic that everybody knows. Yeah, these songs these are way before my time. The Supremes Again, You Can't Hurry Love. You gotta wait. Oh, Free the Pain, Band of Gold. And my dad used to play that one out so much. He used to play Band of Gold and Bring the Boys Home, which I think was the song she had about like the troops in Vietnam. But Band of Gold, he played so much. So definitely rest in peace to Lamont Dozier. And even though it's sad, like I said on my last live, I think it's good when you get to see people live a full life and make it into their 80s and their 90s. And so you can't even really be sad, because when you're given whatever time you're given on this earth, you're given it, and whatever legacy you leave behind, that's what people carry on. And fortunately for him, his legacy is literally an entire catalog of music that everybody listens to. And, you know, these are songs that will be here forever. So that's definitely a great way to go out. And then apparently there is a new TikTok challenge that has a lot of folks shook because it involves stealing cars. Like, TikTok always got something going. I know I made one, but I have yet to ever use it. I don't know if I'm ever use it, but I made one. But anyway, in this TikTok challenge, it involves pretty much stealing a Hyundai or a Kia, specifically the 2011 to 2021 models, because apparently those vehicles have something with the USB port that people are able to manipulate in order to get the car to crank. And next thing you know, folks are riding off into the sunset with your car. So that's just your heads up for those of you who drive 2011 to 2021 models of a Hyundai or a Kia, specifically the Elantras and the Kia Souls, but I think some of the other models as well are susceptible to the same kind of theft. They said the 2022 ones are protected from, I guess, this specific hack because there's, you know, the anti-theft protections. But, you know, let me just say, I've never been so happy to not have a new car. Because look, I got a 2010 Kia. Like, I was just at the cusp, but my car is not cool enough to steal. And so I guess I saved myself on that one. But to be honest, somebody still broke in my car back in December. I was so pissed. Like, they used like a big old rock and just busted it out. And then didn't even take nothing because there was nothing in my car worth stealing. And it was crazy. Like, they didn't even take the iPod I had in there. Because listen, I still be using the iPod because my car is too old to stream and do Spotify or Apple Music and all that crap. And so, like, they wouldn't even take the iPod. I'm like, what y'all trying to say? Like, how dare you not take the iPod? What you trying? That has valuable stuff in it. But man, but when I saw them say the bit about the club where they're like, yeah, go and you know, you can get the club, steering wheel club. I was like, dang, that reminds me of like my grandma's old car from back in the day. Like my grandma had a 1982 Camaro, and I swear I told the story before, but I'll tell it again. So she had this 82 Camaro that my mom gave her, and my grandma was just hard on cars. Like, she just was riding on faith, because I don't know how the car still worked. Like, she would never take it to get an oil change. The tires would never get rotated. There was no brake fluid being replaced. You know, the brake pads weren't getting replaced, so the car would be squeaking all day. I mean, the weather strip on one side wasn't really working that well. I was like, Grandma, how does this thing even work? Like, you just driving on hope. Like, how does this thing work? And then it didn't help. Like, the AC had been going out, like, so the AC didn't really work. And this is Savannah, Georgia, so you know it's hot from like March to November. And I used to remember, like, me, my cousin Brandon, my brother, like when we had to go to church, we all had to get in the back of her car, and it would be so hot. And then she put that foil thing in the windshield. You know, people put that reflective thing in the windshield that's supposed to block out the heat. That wasn't blocking out anything, because all the heat would do was just come in from the sides. And then it wasn't like the car had seatbelts, so you just had to sit still and hold on. You know, hold on to. And there's no door because it was two doors, so you kind of hold on to like the side where, you know, what you could grab onto just in case you hit a bump or two. But I mean, we used to just ride off in the distance with that thing, and she always had like a bunch of chemicals in the back of the car. Like, I mean, it would be like aerosol sprays and WD-40 and all kind of random different sprays. Like, her car was a moving bomb. Like, if she were to ever get in a car accident with that thing, we would have just blew up. But you know, I don't know. The old people are just given grace sometimes and just are protected. And so my grandma just be just fine going any and everywhere. It's like, the last time I rode in a car with my grandfather, I said I'm gonna never ride in a car with him again, because he, you know, he's at that age where it's like, I think it's time we need to take the license. Like, take the license, please, because I was in that car with him. He lives in LA, and he was driving that big old van. We were so far over the middle line. I'm like, Grandpa, we fine, okay. And I just had to look at the floor and tell myself, you know what? He does this every day and has done this for 89 years. Let me just look at the floor while we're moving. We got in like this parking lot, and he going like 30 in the parking lot, and all these cars. I was like, oh my God, we're gonna get T-boned. Grandpa, you living on the edge, man. Like, whoo. But anyway, like I said, yeah, I really want to buy a new car, but it makes more sense to like chill, because I want to buy a house. Plus, you know, I'd rather have like just the raggedy old car and a nice house as opposed to like the raggedy house in a brand new car. At least if the car raggedy, you can park it in the garage. Ain't nobody got to see it. You know what I mean? But my car is not too raggedy. It's paid for. Like, it gets the job done. So I'm gonna ride that thing till the wheels fall off. But yeah, so those of you with the Kias and the Hyundais, just as a heads up, that's what's happening over there on TikTok. I still haven't used mine yet. I made one, but I don't know if I'm ever gonna use it. I don't know what to put on it. Like, I announced like, hey guys, I'm on TikTok, and then I was like, I don't know what to do. So there's that. That's TikTok for you. Anyway, I also read that the country is still in the midst of a massive teacher shortage, which is pretty, you know, that's pretty intense, because right now we're in a space where school is starting. Like, I know in Atlanta, a lot of the kids have already gone back, and, you know, a lot of states are getting ready to roll into the next school year, and there's a lot of states with a lot of openings. I was looking at Kansas, where there's 1,400 positions that are open, and then the state of Florida, there's 14,000. Like, this is crazy. And they had showed a survey where they surveyed, you know, a bunch of different teachers, and 55% of the teachers said, like, yeah, they're ready to check out. Like, they're done. Like, they plan to exit the teaching field much earlier than expected. They don't plan to retire out of this field. They want to go into something else. And I think because there's just been so much to take place in the last few years. Everything from like the pandemic, which already was a bunch of layers of different things going down, as far as having to go back and forth between like hybrid and virtual, seeing some of your peers die from COVID. Like I told you guys, I had a coworker actually pass from COVID. Now, I wasn't a teacher, but I ran a community center and worked in the after school realm. And, you know, there's nothing more challenging than explaining to a bunch of kids that somebody they've known their entire life, you know, died within the span of a week. You know, that's a lot. It's heavy emotionally, and, you know, especially for like younger kids, where it's a lot to process. It's hard for them, and then for your older kids that are like teenagers, that's a lot too, especially if, you know, somebody's been around for a really long time. Because, you know, when you work in like an after school realm, it's not like kids go to a new teacher every year. They stay with you the whole time you're there. So, you know, if you like in that job, I was there like almost 11 years. So, you know, kids that right now would be graduating from high school would have been with me since they were in second grade. So, you know, it's a lot for people. But like with teachers, you know, so they had to deal with all that with COVID, and then again the rules and the regulations that kept changing, and then teachers were already going through the mass exodus, and you watch classrooms get larger and larger, where teachers have more and more students, where, you know, some teachers that were used to only having 20 or 21 students now have 35, and they're still expected to perform to the standard that's mandated by the state. In addition to the fact that now you have all these lunatic parents out here, because things have gotten so politicized, and they're showing up to the school board meetings with AR-15s, and, you know, they want to fight and rally, and they want to have monitors to make sure the teachers aren't teaching CRT, and there's just so much going on. So a lot of teachers are checked out, in addition to the fact that they don't get paid enough. And I've always made that argument for as long as I've had this channel. The fact that we are a country that only spends 6% of our budget on education, but we can spend all the money in the world to go blow up folks across the water that we don't know, and, you know, put it all in the name of democracy. Okay, all right. But anyway, you know, and that's why I've always said, like, for parents, please don't just think it's on the teachers to educate your children. Now, and also then when we just talk about the pool of teachers, there are some teachers that I don't think are really great teachers that don't need to teach anybody, but for the really good ones, I feel bad because it's like there's so much that's on their shoulders. But I've always felt that in education, there's so many different components. Yes, there's the portion that comes from the teachers, right? That's like the formal education that you go into as far as going that traditional trajectory. But in addition to that, life, I think, is an education for a lot of kids. Just trial and error, learning different things, getting exposed to different spaces, being around different groups of people, going to different places, having an opportunity to participate in many different things. You know, the experiences and lessons you get from different coaches, whether it be your basketball coach or your swim coach or whatever sport you play, or if you're a part of a chess club, or the random person or the neighbor that sponsored your lemonade stand. Like, all of those different lessons come into an education. And another component is what you learn at home and what you learn from your family, especially for black kids, because of course we're now in a space where black kids can't even learn about themselves at school because it's CRT. And so, you know, ensuring that, you know, children still get an education about who they are internally and culturally and traditionally, and what are the customs in you know, in regards to the background you come from, or the ethnicity you come from, or the race you come from, or even sometimes the country you come from, for those who are first or second or third generation immigrant families. Like, all of these different experiences, like, I think education comes in so many layers. That's why I really believe it really does take a village, but right now the village is an S-word show, so the poor kids just got a crappy deal. And then again, the whole virtual thing has definitely done a number on a lot of kids. I don't think people have thought about what that experience is for a kindergartner whose first experience with school was sitting in front of a computer virtually because they couldn't be in the classroom. So there's already like a delay in regards to the social skills and being able to be around groups of different kids and understanding behavioral patterns and understanding how to work collectively, as opposed to kind of just me, because up until then you've only been with your parents and whoever's in the house, and you haven't been around other people. You haven't learned how to be in uncomfortable spaces. And so now you're in a space where you're always crying because you're not getting your way. You're not used to being told that you have to share. Like, there's so many things to think about. Teachers deal with a lot, all right? And so, you know, hopefully things will align. Teachers definitely need to get paid more, and I think there definitely needs to be like a revamp on all of U.S. education. I've said that for the longest. Like, the curriculums, how we go about doing things, how we treat the teachers, and just there's so much that could be done. I think the kids are really getting the short end of the stick, and I think it sucks. But that's why I really believe in like a full circle approach to education. Kids need a little bit of everything in order for it all to make sense. So even as a parent, if you solely think that it's just the teacher's job to turn your child into a genius, you're selling the child short. They're gonna have to get a bunch of different, you know, buy-in and investment from so many people. And so I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but I always get passionate because I feel like kids don't ask to be here. And so since they're here, can we give them the red carpet rollout so that, you know, they can ensure that society is in a good place when we're all in our 80s and 90s and we need somebody to take care of us? You know what I mean? And so hopefully we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully things will align. But yeah, right now there's definitely a need for teachers. But the scary part is now, because there's such a level of desperation, you know, there's some districts that are kind of lowering the standard in regards to who they're putting in the classroom because they just need numbers. They just need somebody in there just to do whatever. So automatically now some of the kids are just, again, getting a watered down education that's already watered down. Chaos. Anyway. And then Carolyn Bryant, we already knew not to get our hopes up with this one. It's a bunch of nonsense. But if you remember, now I talked about her 2 lives ago, and a lot of you are familiar with her, but she is the woman who pretty much put out the false claims against Emmett Till, which led to him being killed and tortured. And she got to live her best life, you know, just unscathed, and just carried on as if she wasn't responsible for killing a kid because she was over there lying, right? And so everything happens with Emmett Till. You know, they go and they kidnap the poor kid out of the house, and, you know, they do what they do to him, and there's the funeral, and the mom has the casket open so the world can see what had happened to her child, and, you know, the photo is put on the different magazine covers, and a lot of America literally is in shock with what kind of things just took place against Emmett Till. Like, who does that to a child? Who does that to anyone? You know what I mean? And that pretty much indirectly helped to kick off a lot of the civil rights movement, or not even indirectly, but directly. And so, you know, for years, she got to just live and act like nothing was wrong, you know, dance off in the fields, and the hills are alive with the sound of music and crap. And then it's discovered recently that, hey, there was a warrant for her arrest that was never served. And so there had been all this talk about, y'all need to go ahead and snatch her up and put her in the jail. So let's go. What's the hold up? Chop, chop. Let's go. Get her hover around, roll her out. Let's go. And, you know, it was announced recently that a grand jury decided that they're not going to really acknowledge that warrant. And so they're going to just let her carry on and live her life. And people were trying to justify it and say, oh, well, you know, she suffered enough. She's in bad health and life hasn't been that good to her. And that's been the lesson for her. I don't want to hear none of that, because in all reality, like when it came to them Nazis, they're still snatching them up and putting them in jail for stuff they did back in the 30s and the 40s. I'm sorry. Like they are snatching people out of hospice care. OK, folks be like 102, can't even sit up straight. They got to prop them up in the courtroom and everything. And the judge is like, are you aware about the charges that are against you? And the person can't even talk, just sitting there barely breathing, just and the judge is still like 20 years. Let's go. She can get that same energy. I'm sorry. I don't care that she has gotten into an old age and, okay, well, let her live her last days in the cell then. She already got to have the free part in the front half. Lock her up. Let's go. Roll her on out. Put her on in the cell, because that's some messed up stuff. She sat there for decades and didn't say anything about it. And then in addition, she knew she was lying. She knew when they all stormed out what they were going to go do to that kid. She knew. And she sat there quietly and then sat there for years and watched the mother suffer, because, again, nobody was ever convicted in that. So the mother had to watch her child, you know, be tortured and mutilated and killed off, and nobody ever really go to jail for anything. Everybody gets off. You know, whoever got charged, nobody had to do any jail time. Everybody just living their best life. And then even his memorial, they have to constantly replace it because a bunch of stupid racist trolls constantly shoot the Emmett Till memorial every single time they replace it. Like, that's the kind of nonsense black people got to deal with. But y'all want to have some sympathy for her because she old and broke up now. Good. I feel like that's the karma, but still, put her in the jail. Let her be broke up in the jail. Like, I'm not budging on that one, okay? Like, nah, y'all, people give grace to all the wrong people. She got more than enough grace. So, like I said, like they do the Nazis, go ahead and snatch her up, all right? Put her on in there and send her to the judge. That's how I see it. She gets no sympathy from me. I'm not about to, them tears don't work for me. I'm just looking at you. Crazy. Next. And then when it comes to Breonna Taylor, let me just read the article and then we'll talk. 4 police officers federally charged with civil rights violations in Breonna Taylor's death. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced the charges against the current or former officers in the death of Taylor, a 26-year-old black medical worker who was killed in a botched raid. 2 current and 2 former police officers in Louisville, Kentucky have been charged with violating Breonna Taylor's civil rights in the 2020 botched raid that led to the young black woman's death. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, in announcing the charges, said the Department of Justice alleges that the violations resulted in Ms. Taylor's death. Detective Joshua James with the Louisville Metro Police Department obtained the warrant used in the March 13, 2020 search of the 26-year-old medical worker's apartment. Kelly Goodlett, who along with James was a detective in the Place-Based Investigations Unit that investigated drug trafficking, and Sergeant Kyle Meany, who supervised the unit, were charged with falsifying an affidavit. James and Goodlett are accused of misleading investigators probing the deadly shooting. Meany allegedly lied to the FBI, Garland said. In a separate indictment, Brent Hankinson was charged with using excessive force while executing the search warrant. Hankinson was terminated from the department in June 2020, while James was terminated in January 2021. Louisville police said in a statement Thursday. The department is also seeking to terminate Goodlett and Meany, the statement said. Today, Chief Erica Shields began termination procedures of Sergeant Kyle Meany and Officer Kelly Goodlett. While we must refer all questions about the federal investigation to the FBI, it is critical that any illegal or inappropriate actions by law enforcement be addressed comprehensively in order to continue our efforts to build police community trust, police said. During the early morning raid, officers opened fire, killing Taylor after her boyfriend, believing an intruder was trying to break in, fired a gun toward the door. Taylor's boyfriend lawfully possessed the gun, Garland said, and after he had fired and struck an officer, 2 officers then fired 22 shots, one of which fatally struck Taylor in the chest, Garland said. The federal charges announced today allege that members of the Place-Based Investigations Unit falsified the affidavit used to obtain the search warrant of Ms. Taylor's home, Garland said, adding that this act violated federal civil rights and that those violations resulted in Ms. Taylor's death. An investigation by Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, they needed to investigate him if anything, determined officers knocked and announced themselves as police before entering Taylor's apartment. He said this was corroborated by a civilian witness. Garland also said Thursday the search warrant was sought while officers knew they lacked probable cause for the search. James and Goodlett, Garland said, falsely claimed officers verified the target of the alleged drug trafficking had received packages at Taylor's address. James and Goodlett knew that was not true, Garland said. The bungled raid targeted Taylor's ex-boyfriend, a convicted drug dealer who was not in the apartment at the time. That man, Jamarcus Glover, has said Taylor had no involvement in the drug trade. The officers involved in the raid were unaware of the misleading statements in the search warrant affidavit, Garland said. Hankinson is charged with using excessive force, Garland said, because after Taylor was shot, he moved from a doorway and fired 10 more shots through a window and a sliding glass door covered with blinds and curtains, just shooting at anything. Hankinson was found not guilty on all counts in March of endangering a couple and their 5-year-old son the night of the raid. He was accused of endangering Cody Etheron and his partner, Chelsea Napper, and their son when he fired shots into their apartment. So one, for a lot of people who have already been paying attention to what's been happening in regards to police brutality against black folks, none of this is a shock. This is what we've been saying since day one anyway. The minute the details came out, we're like, wait a minute, this don't add up. Something in this ain't right. And, you know, the craziest thing is for the people who called it out, of course, everything worked like clockwork because, you know, in the United States, every single time a black person is killed by the police and people start asking questions, people flood and try to fight and claw and attack you because they don't like that you're calling out the system. You know what I mean? Literally, you can go to any video that I have ever made, and not even just me, any person who pretty much shares my same sentiments on police brutality against black Americans, any content creator that has had some kind of discussion, it could be me, it could be, I don't know a lot of these people by names, but you know, literally you can go to their comment section and we all get the same commentary from white America. They want to call us just idiots and biased, and we need to do our research and we don't know our facts. And then you start to see the cycle where what happens, they go and they try to find the fault with the person who is no longer living. They did it with Breonna Taylor, they did it with Elijah McClain, they did it with Terrence Crutcher, they did it with Philando Castile, they did it with like every person you can think of that has been unjustifiably killed by police. Sandra Bland, oh, they got a reason. Why didn't they just comply? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't the person turn the music down? Why did this person do that? And they will go and try to find everything they can find and make it make sense as to why a person got shot 5 or 6 or 7 times, because somehow whatever stupid, you know, ideology that they've created that makes sense in their head, somehow it's supposed to be justifiable and become the law of the land and make sense as to why the police can storm into somebody's house unannounced, barely in uniform. Somebody who lawfully owns a gun shoots because they think that somebody has broken into their house, and then because that person shot at the police get to shoot 22 rounds into the house, including a police officer who leaves the house, stands outside and just starts shooting into the window, literally into the neighbor's house. And somehow all of this is justified, and they try to paint Breonna Taylor to be, oh, she was a drug queen pin, and you know, she had all kind of bad people around her. This is what happens when these are the people you date. Like, they will make a justification for some nonsense just to be right, and knowing they're wrong. You know what I mean? And they do this on every video, every time this happens, every time you start bringing attention and awareness to whoever has been a victim to this, now they want to fight you. And really, like I've always said, when it comes to many people living in white America, it is hard for them to believe that the police can be wrong, especially if that means that the black person is actually in the right. That stuff like that they don't want to hear. Why? Because a lot of white America sees the police as an extension of themselves. That's why they take such offense when people give the police a whole bunch of smoke with the nonsense that's happening. But they also like to move the goalposts, because now we're seeing the conversations around the police in regards to what just happened with Trump getting raided. I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, yeah, they see the police as an extension of themselves. They see the United States as an extension of themselves, which is why when anybody who is not white in this country complains about what's happening, the first thing they want to tell you, well, you can go back to Africa. And I'm like, yeah, you want me to go back to Africa after me and my folks done built everything that you get the benefit from? Now you want to send somebody off after you? You ain't done no work. Your ancestors didn't do a damn thing but be in the way and terrorize people, and now you want to sit here and reap the benefits and tell me where I can go? Get out of my face. Anyway, and so yeah, they see America as an extension of themselves. They see the police as an extension of themselves, and because they center themselves in everything, when you're talking about something from a structural standpoint, they can't seem to take themselves out of it because they have to make everything an individualistic standpoint about themselves. And now they personally take offense about you feeling some kind of way about the police having a botched raid with bad intelligence, where they purposely knew that they were going into this place where there weren't going to be any drugs because no drugs were found, and the individual that they were looking for didn't even live there and had not been there and had not even been in a relationship with Breonna Taylor for an extended period of time because she was with somebody else. They don't want to believe none of that. And so all of those moments, all of that just does not register for them, because again, it's like, oh my God, you're attacking me. When you attack the police, you're attacking me. You're attacking blah blah blah. And so because they see themselves as an extension of the police or an extension of America, this is why we have this influx of Karens that constantly have these meltdowns and do the most. Because again, I've always felt that we're living in a space where white people don't feel that they live with us. And when I say us, that means anybody who's not white, but specifically black people, because I speak about me and mine. I can't be a mule for everybody else, but I can speak for me and mine. They don't see themselves as living with us. They see themselves as living over us. We're living in their world. It's their world. We just living in it. And so they got to tolerate us, and we're supposed to act accordingly. And this is why we get the Karens who call the police every 5 minutes about something when they don't like something, or they have a moment, or they lay out in the street, or they try to police everybody. Or this is why we get people trying to do citizens arrests all the time, because they think there's a law all of a sudden and that they can enforce it and everything. This is how we ended up getting redlining, where, you know, you can't even live in certain neighborhoods because they don't want you living amongst them. This is why they're so anti-affirmative action, because the fear of anybody else other than them having an opportunity to be great, because everybody knows once you provide access and opportunity, things start to change. You know, the funniest thing is, I look at gymnastics. And when you look at what people got away with in gymnastics back in the day with those early Olympics, you know, they literally just ran with a ribbon and jumped and got a gold medal. And when we fast forward to today, where you have all these young black girls like, you know, Dominique Dawes from back in the day, and Simone Biles and Gabby Douglas and all, and they're like just doing like some damn near Power Rangers, you know. Stuff like that has people shook, because they recognize once certain people have access and opportunity and they're not limited by a zip code, you know, things start to change. And that means that if you are already mediocre and you've been able to just skate on privilege, now you have to actually challenge yourself to do better. And when you don't want to do the work because nobody in your lineage has ever done that, because they've always just had the upper hand, there was a system to back and protect them from any and everything and let them just jump into many different doors and into many different spaces. Oh yeah, they're totally against it. So that's why so many are against affirmative action. That's why so many are fighting against CRT and academia. They don't want to hear, they don't want the kid. And mind you, CRT has now turned into anything that does not teach white history. So now, you know, kids can't even learn about Ruby Bridges. That's too much. You know, they can't read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. That's way too much. Some of them can barely even talk about Martin Luther King at this point. They can't talk about what happened with the Native Americans. They can't talk about what happened with the Asian community being in the little internment. All that they got to take out of the history books, because that doesn't make them look great. And again, if it doesn't make them look great, it brings up criticism. And when it brings out criticism against the country, who does it criticize again? The people who see themselves as an extension of the country. And so yeah, that CRT stuff is done. This is why black athletes catch a bunch of smoke if they get political. That's why they tell LeBron to just shut up and dribble. You know, you should be thankful that you're even in this position to play. So just shut up and play. This is why Stevie Wonder caught all that smoke when he started talking about police brutality, and white folks were like, after all we've done for you, you should be grateful. And I'm like, first of all, y'all didn't make Stevie Wonder. Black people are who we made Stevie Wonder, okay? It was us who had little 12-year-old Stevie blow up. Y'all came late to the party and discovered it, and then you want to take ownership of his success. Yes, we're happy y'all bought the records, but no, he is rooted down at home with us, and it has always been. But they think they own everything. Anytime there's a black person who comes into a space of wealth or prosperity, automatically white people collectively think that they have something to do with it. And so even when we get to what's happening with schools, right? And so even when you talk about school choice, that's rooted in the fact that people don't want their kids going to school with black folks and anybody else. White folks just want to be amongst themselves, and school choice, and we want to give people the choice. And really, they just want to pull, you know, all of the money out of public schooling and put it into private funding and everything like that. And really, it's going to be rich white kids, and working class white families are actually going to be left out. But they're so in this space where they think that they are in the same boat as rich white folks, and it's like, y'all, one day y'all will learn. One day you'll figure it out. Y'all just keep biting yourselves in the foot, but whatever. And then in addition, that's why we had the forced busing after integration started, because it's just like so many different things taking place, right? And this is why people show up to meetings with AR-15, school board meetings. They don't like it. They got an AR-15. They don't like what happened with whatever state laws coming. They go into the state house with AR-15, right? Just ready to shoot every 5 minutes. Oh, it's gonna be civil war. I mean, you know, they go to January 6th and just storm the Capitol. Anytime that the livelihood that they know as being white and being in charge of everything and having the say in how everything goes gets challenged, they get violent. And that happens in politics. They do that with voting. They do that with everything. And the only time they even deal with us is when we can play the role. Like, they love black folks when we play the role, when we know how to just shut up, when we know how to just entertain, when we know how to just cook, when we know how to just be the fun culture and do all the things that people like, or when we can be a mouthpiece for white supremacy. So when we can be like a Diamond in Silk, or even a Daniel Cameron, who's the Attorney General, who they need to investigate with this crap, because he's definitely tied into this kind of mess. They love people like that. You know, they love the black folks that can, you know, play the game of whiteness to try to climb up and appease white America in order to get to wherever they need to be at the expense of black folks. They love that. But, you know, that's where we're at. And so it was so crazy, because when you look at any of those old videos, I mean, literally, it can be Ahmaud Arbery, it can be Breonna Taylor, it can be Terrence Crutch, it can be Philando Castile, it can be literally anybody who's been shot and killed by police. You see the exact same commentary on every video. They try to vilify whoever got killed and justify and make every excuse for the police being right. And it is what it is. And so here we are. You have a whole federal indictment, right? You know, it's like, okay, these are civil rights violations. And like literally there's a whole investigation where it's showing, okay, You guys gave bad intel purposely. You knew the intel was wrong when there was an entire investigation. Y'all were lying about it. The Hankinson guy faces like 20 years of life if he's convicted with his specific charge. And again, then it gets deeper because a lot of this played into the fact that they pretty much already had like an entire gentrification plan for that entire region. And they were just trying to find every reason in the book to go ahead and start getting people up out of there. And so here we are where, again, it's coming out that there's a big cover-up. And this is not the first one. This is one of many, of many, of many. And it's just crazy because, again, people have been calling this out for years and decades. But because there's so many in white America who cannot see past that lens because they don't want to see themselves, you know, and when I say themselves, I'm saying that extension of the police or the U.S. as in the wrong. And that it's just possible that black people could really just be minding their business and boom, stuff happens. Stuff like that just doesn't align for them. And so they're going to still fight tooth and nail. This is like even Trayvon Martin, who, again, this was not a police situation. But again, the fact that people can break their necks to vilify a teenager who was unarmed against a grown man who followed a teenager in the rain, you know, against the wishes and the directions of 911 dispatchers who already said we have some support coming, but even somebody like a Zimmerman who honestly still saw himself as white. The point that I'm making is like anti-blackness is so internalized in this country, and it's really at the hands of the idea in the lens of whiteness, where whiteness is the standard and everybody's supposed to follow suit and abide and get in line and get in formation, and when you're not, then you're a problem and you must be dealt with. And that's what continues to happen with so many people, as far as like a Breonna Taylor or a lot of black people who unfortunately end up being killed by the police, or random citizens who think that they are heroes and they, you know, they have to go and protect the country or protect what's theirs. And this is where we're at. A bunch of chaos, a bunch of nonsense, foolery. Do better, folks. And then as far as Travis and Greg McMichael, who were both sentenced to a second life sentence in regards to the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, good. That's what y'all get. Hopefully they can make more examples out of folks so people can stop thinking that they can just go and take the law into their own hands and kill black people when they think black people are going to steal or do whatever. Like a bunch of nonsense. And just like I said on my Ahmaud Arbery video, that's what happens when you don't know how to mind your business and leave people alone. You want to sit there and be racist and think you're entitled enough to go and follow somebody and think they're supposed to answer to you. And when they don't, you get to chase them with a truck and a shotgun and think that you were going to be protected and get to go home. Like that's the kind of nonsense we're talking about. As far as like, again, people just thinking they own everything, thinking again that they live over people and people are supposed to abide by what it is that they feel is the standard through their own lens and their own perspective that they've created amongst themselves, but never really asked anybody else if they believed in or aligned with themselves. So get out of here. So yeah, I think there needs to be more examples made, and because I think you start making more examples out of some of these folks, they will recognize that, okay, I'm not going to be able to just go and shoot black people or go terrorize black folks because I don't think they belong in this neighborhood, or I've never seen them before, or I have a suspicion, or I've created a scenario in my head where they're the most violent person in the world and they must be up to no good because that's what those people do. You know, I think you start making more examples out of folks like that, they'll recognize you just can't go and start randomly bothering and killing folks. But sadly, that's more of a systemic issue, and we've seen that there's also a cover-up with that. So we'll see where all this unfolds, but, you know, good for you know, on them. Yeah, both of y'all sit there the rest of y'all lives. And I know one of them was saying like they want to go to a federal prison because they're afraid they're going to be killed in state prison. May you receive what it is that you have put into the universe. That's all I can say. You know what I mean? Like, folks are just terrible. And even with that, people broke their necks to try to make Ahmaud Arbery look like this violent person who was breaking into houses. A whole house that's under construction that has nothing of value worth taking other than some plywood. People wanted to say, yeah, he had broken to the house. I'm like, he ran and jogged and looked at the house that was under construction like a lot of people do when they're building a new house in the neighborhood. People like to go and see the, you know, the blueprint. Oh, okay, this might be the kitchen, I'm guessing, blah, 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 blah. And people somehow turn that into the burglar from Unsolved Mysteries that was going to break in the house and go kill up all the babies and assault the women and step on the dog's head. Like, people are just stupid. Like, I'm telling you, when you get a chance, go through all of my old videos. Any video where it's somebody black that got killed by police or killed unjustifiably by somebody racist, and just read the comment section. Don't read the top comments. Hit it by newest first so you get to see the real ones. Because, you know, when it shows like top comments, those are the ones that most people like hit like on or something. And so, you know, those are usually the more favorable comments. Go to them real deep down ones where, you know, I'm all kind of N-words and coons and monkeys. And, you know, Ahmaud Arbery was a violent rapist who could have attacked all the girls in the neighborhood. And Breonna Taylor was a drug queen pin and she deserved to die. Because it's crazy because you literally see the same pattern for years. The coolest thing about YouTube is like literally it's like you're almost like a historian as you're telling everything, you know, day after day, year after year, and you go back and look at where America was in 2014 or 2010 or wherever, and you realize that nothing has changed in regards to the heartbeat of America's conscience. Like, ain't nothing changed. There is no moral compass in this country at all. Hot mess. And then as far as Trump and his police raid, let me just say, I'm not even tied into this. I'm just watching from the sidelines. I'm not that invested, but I would like to see how this plays out. It's interesting because people are trying to paint this man to be a political prisoner or a victim of the system. And listen, first of all, Trump is not a victim of the system. Trump is the system, to be honest. We have watched this man get away with literally everything for like the last decade. This man don't even pay taxes and get to live and showboat about it. Like, get out of my face. Y'all are not about to sit here and paint him to be a victim of anything, because pretty much he already told y'all he could stand out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and nothing would happen. And he has been able to prove that for the last few years. Like, when you think of all of the corruption and everything tied to this man, and he's still skating. And before y'all try to come in here and bring up Biden, Biden can catch it too. I don't know why y'all think I'm a disciple for the other guy. Like, understand, criticism of Trump does not automatically mean an endorsement of the other side. Like, we've gotten into this space where politics have become so tribal, and like I've said, it's stupid if you are a fan or a loyal follower of any politician, because then you just set yourself up for failure. Like, politicians work for us. We're not supposed to be fans and worship them like this is some dang, you know, stan group battle between, like, you know, who, I don't know, the Beehive and the Rihanna Navy, or the Nicki, you know, all the different fan bases that go like super hard and they like eating each other live on social media. That's not how politics is supposed to work, because it's actually our livelihood. It's actually our way of living. And people literally have like a cult mentality with some of these people in power. I'm like, y'all are weird. Like, y'all are weird as hell. And it's funny because now they're like, oh, you know, defund the FBI. I'm like, really? You know, now I remember people literally had to change their entire campaign slogan because people got nervous with the phrase defund the police and thought that's too much, that's going to scare middle America and blah, 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 blah. When in reality, that conversation was just about reallocating funds and saying, okay, well, you're giving some police departments so much money to the point where they have money for like literally military combat gear and tanks that can you know, those robot tanks that ride into people's houses when they need to do the drug raids and it runs right through the door and everything like that. You know, there's money for all of that. But, you know, some of that money could be put more so for people who have manic episodes, who more so have mental health issues and things like that, or money into resources for like second chance programs so people can get back into the workforce, things like that. Like, that's what that was about. But now all of a sudden it's y'all boy who done got, you know, caught up in pretty much a domino effect that he created, and now it's defund the FBI. Okay, if we want to defund the FBI, are y'all taking Assata Shakur off the top most wanted list, the FBI's most wanted list, since all of a sudden Trump is such a victim to the system? Because if we want to talk victims to the system, I don't remember Trump getting shot and not getting health care, and then having to give birth on a jail cell floor and being framed for killing somebody. I ain't seen that with Trump, but y'all trying to paint him to be a hero or something. Like, please, that man does not care about anybody, which is why I will never understand why people go so hard for this guy. Like, I understand, you know, people saying, well, he was somebody different and he was against the status quo in regards to politics and he brought something different to the table. I guess. But he's not somebody I'm dying on the hill over. So I'm going to watch this and be thoroughly entertained. But, you know, he put out a whole statement, the radical left Democrat. I was like, here y'all go. It's like they got like just buzzwords and trigger words that they just throw out there all the time. It was like when they had the Georgia Senate race and Loeffner was going against Warnock, and when they had a debate. She couldn't say anything about policy because all she could keep saying was Democrat, radical left, Democrat, radical liberal, Democrat. I'm like, just like robots. Like, y'all, like, what y'all doing? Like, okay, people are weird around here, man. You know, so now folks are like, yeah, we're going to start a civil war. And I'm like, I don't even know who y'all fighting. Who is the enemy here? Like, go to work like everybody else and live your life. Like, literally, you know, look, Trump had his heyday. Somebody else will be next. You know, it is what it is. Like, I think people are so loyal to politicians now. It's like almost scary. Like, goodness. But I think, again, in the same way that I said, a lot of people see the police as an extension of themselves, and the same with America. A lot of people see Trump as an extension of themselves, and the viewpoints that he has matches theirs, and now it's almost like a religion. All right. And again, my smoke for Trump does not automatically mean I'm a disciple for anybody else in politics, but it's just like folks are weird. So yeah, it is what it is. We'll see what happens. I don't know. You know, Trump been able to do so much. I still don't see a whole lot happening. You know what I mean? But entertaining, I guess. America's a mess, man. I feel like I was born in the wrong decade or something, but then I look back, I don't think there's any good decades to be black in this country. And so, aside from the great cultural aspects, but when you start talking policy and law, we just always had the short end of the stick. Like, dang. Anyway, that's all I have for you. Share your 2 cents. I'm out. Subscribe.
separate. I'll go the extra mile for you. Let me serenade. Tell me if you want me to. But you're special. You bring a kind of magic to my life. You're so special. Dance into the night. I hold your body tight. So you hit my phone, I'll check your text.